reactions from the SAFA presser?
Well, nothing surprising really. They sacked Molefi Ntseki, which I think everyone kind of expected after he failed to get the team to the Africa Cup of Nations. And what was a surprise was that Danny Jordan, the president of the South African Football Association, didn't even show up for the press conference to explain his views on what had gone wrong and on who the next coach might be. We understand that the technical committee will meet next week to discuss this, but I think it would have been a responsible piece of behaviour if the president of the association had shown up and been prepared to sit in front of the media and answer questions about what's gone wrong, because obviously this isn't an isolated incident. So we've been hiring and firing coaches for the last 20 years and more with very little success. This, I think, if my math is correct, we've now only qualified for 3 of the last 7 Africa Cup of Nations, and one of those we hosted, so technically we've only qualified for 2 of the last 7 Africa Cup of Nations if you take into account that we hosted the one in 2013. So it's a long sort of litany of mistakes, if you like, and different coaches, and it becomes quite clear that the coach might have bad tactics on the day, pick the wrong team, pick the wrong players, but ultimately they're not responsible for the deterioration of South African football, which can be attributed to many other factors, one of which is certainly the South African Football Association's handling of the game.
Were you satisfied with Mr. Maduleke's responses?
No, but I also don't blame Mr. Maduleke, because I think Mr. Maduleke was put in a position where he was told he was speaking for the president. I don't think he should have been put in that position at all. I think it's the president, Danny Jordan's job to speak for himself. He avoided the question really of whether SAFA would be taking, or what responsibility SAFA would be taking, or whether they look beyond just the coach as a cause of a problem in the senior national team. But he kind of just avoided the question, so it felt a bit pointless having asked the question when I got such a brief, but I didn't really think it was worth pursuing, because I was simply going to be met by a similar wall of sort of non-answering, if you like. Yeah, something like that.
Top coaches in the country are not available. The likes of so it's highly likely that it will be an overseas coach.
Well, I don't know. You've got to sort of take into consideration the last coach they hired was Molefi Ntseki, who's a junior national team coach who obviously knew the junior ranks very well, but perhaps wasn't the top candidate in terms of experience at international or club level. So my feeling is that do SAFA have the money to pay for an overseas coach? Because if they're going to hire a decent overseas coach, they're going to have to reach into their pockets and put out some money. I do remember, I think after Shakes Mashaba was fired, Danny Jordan said money is no object. And then they were linked with Carlos Queiroz, and money suddenly, I think, became an object very much. So you have a situation where Stuart Baxter came in, and he got the team to the AFCON, and they did reach the quarterfinals. So maybe they'll go for another overseas-based coach. Maybe they'll go for a local coach. And I'm not necessarily saying that that the overseas-based coach is going to be more expensive, but it does tend to cost a bit more in euros or dollars to hire a coach than in rand. That's what I'm trying to say. But so it's a hard one, because you just don't know where SAFA's mindset is at. You just don't know. They did recently release a financial report where they done much better. Whether that's because of not really travelling much, or I don't know. I haven't read the report. I probably should, but they seem to have financially done much better. So maybe they do have money now to hire a better coach. But it did seem like Ntseki was, with all due respect to Ntseki, he was a perfectly good coach. For me, at a junior level, maybe not with the senior national team, it did seem to be a cheap option. I mean, Shakes Mashaba also always riled at suggestions he was a cheap option, but it seems like the coffers have been a little bit empty over the last few years, and we'll have to wait and see if they're able to put some more money in there and then hire a coach. But as we've said repeatedly, the coaches, whoever they hire as a coach, they could hire Jose Mourinho or Thomas Tuchel or whoever, it's not necessarily going to change anything, because I think Jose Mourinho once made a comment when he was Chelsea coach about not having the right eggs to make a good omelette. If you can't, you've got to give the coach the eggs to make the omelette, and I'm not sure that SAFA are doing that.